welcome everybody to Spotlight episode 8. I'm super excited about today's guest. It's Diana Stepner. She has a background in product leadership. I'd love for you to kind of explain your background, Diana, to our listeners, just where you came from and how you got to where you're at now, how you found your passion in product. But I know there's kind of a lot to unpack there, but just first, if you can give an introduction to yourself.
Sure. I'm Diana Stepner, and as Tyga said, I'm in product management. I've been in project management for quite a long time. My foundation actually was in user experience research, and I joined Salesforce really early on and was their first user experience researcher, and I kept sharing my ideas with the product folks and was wondering, why can't I just do what they do and then work with engineering and marketing and others to be able to bring these ideas and these new features to life. So I pivoted over to product management. Wow. And been in product management ever since.
Just curious, how early on at Salesforce? I do see the dates here. I do see the dates. I know that
it's a long time.
Yeah. But like just for perspective, like how many employees were at Salesforce at this time? Because right now it's obviously a publicly traded company.
Yeah.
It's on, it
was
one of the biggest, tallest skyscrapers in San Francisco is, I think, the Salesforce Tower.
Yeah. So I won't. Yeah, the year will be on my LinkedIn, but it was interesting because I worked at a startup called Epiphany, and folks may know of Steve Blank. He writes a lot about innovation, and he was one of the original marketing people at Epiphany. And then Epiphany, evolved as all startups do. And so when, it became kind of interesting in regards to how we were going to grow and scale. That was also around the time that Salesforce was growing and scaling as well. So there are a bunch of people from Epiphany who went to go work at Salesforce. And so I had some connections there pretty early on. But I will say the unique thing about the Salesforce time, and this will probably date some of it as well, it was right the year that Gmail started. And so I have a really cool Gmail address because one of the people that was also a product manager, her husband worked in the Gmail area. So we were able to get pretty early email addresses.
Very cool. Well, it sounds like exciting that you got to pretty much work hands-on, like at the beginning, or I don't know, like kind of in the middle of the Silicon Valley revolution, the Silicon Valley bubble. And I do see here that you pretty much have, you went to undergrad in San Diego.
Yeah.
And also, you got a communications degree. Obviously, you're a fantastic speaker. But what made you decide to go to San Diego, and why did you get a communications degree?
So I had some friends who went to university in San Diego. So I figured, hey, they liked it, I should go too, which is never a way I recommend anybody make their university decision, but that's what I did. And I did communications because at that time I wanted to be a producer, like on a TV show. Not in any way, shape, or form in front of the camera, but behind the camera. I thought that would be fun. And I realized with a communication degree, I could do everything and nothing. And so when I graduated, it was, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. And I knew that I really liked technology, but programming was never my thing. And I really liked just being able to bring together people and technology. So a lot of folks said business school would be a great place to kind of bridge between, those technology aspects that you grew up with, because I grew up in Silicon Valley and Cupertino, and then you could combine your communications degree through extending it in business. And so I went directly from university to business school. So I did not pass go, did not pay $200. I just went directly.
I do see you went to Boston University, so you pretty much got to experience like some of the, I guess San Diego is not really an academia, I guess UC San Diego and, UC San Diego is the best UC school. I like 8 years ago when I was, or like 9 years ago when I was in college. I remember I was just like, heck yeah, like San Diego would be really fun to go to college. But it seemed like, yeah, you grew up in Silicon Valley, and then you went to Boston as well. So you kind of were all in like these educational hubs.
Yeah.
Did you go to Boston just to be in another educational hub, or did you want to get kind of in, more into the cold weather?
So
Why'd you decide setting
yeah,
Boston?
really, really, you've hit on a number of the points that
Yeah.
I'm one of those people who's always in motion in some way, shape, or form, reading, learning, walking, exercising, whatever it may be.
Hmm.
And so San Diego was a little bit too laid back for me. And so I decided to go
Hmm.
to the opposite extreme and went to Boston to experience, something beside other than sun. So Boston had all the four seasons, and yeah, I really loved it. I don't like to drive, so being able to be in a
Hmm.
city where you can just walk everywhere and take public transport everywhere, and it's got all the seasons, I just loved it. I thought it was an amazing experience, and I loved business school because everyone was there because they wanted to be. It was their choice, and it was
Hmm.
very collaborative and very just yeah, a great opportunity for me to really build my
Wow.
skills. I think a lot of people probably experienced that in university. I didn't. So for me, business school was
Hmm.
essentially like my university. I really just gained a great amount of understanding, a great amount of just awareness of what, the potential could be, when I entered in the working world into my career. So I really loved business school. I just thought it was amazing.
Wow. And I guess being in Boston, there's MIT, there's Harvard, there's also Boston College and Boston University, of course. Were you able to network with a bunch of like just different students, different programs within those universities? Because I feel like I've never been to Boston, but I hear that downtown
Yeah.
you can walk across it in like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I definitely want to visit Boston. I've been to a bunch of different places, but
Yeah.
Boston is definitely high up on my list of places that I've never been.
I
But
recommend not going in January, February. It's very cold. But
imagine.
I didn't, I'll be honest, I didn't do much with the other schools. Later on, when I worked at Pearson, I did do a lot with the other schools. But when I was at Boston University, we tended to stay in our own bubble. What I did like about the MBA program is that there were people in there who were getting joint degrees with JD, so joint law degrees. There were people there getting communications degrees and MBA, programs. There were people doing IT, in some capacity with the MBA. So, and that I really, really liked because again, you get all these different thoughts and just contributions from
Very
people.
cool.
So I really like that.
You can kind of you can kind of be a jack of all trades, understanding like business and law,
Yeah.
very eclectic skill set. But what did you end up doing after your MBA after Boston?
So I was in a class in university and sorry, in my business program, and we were talking about like, what do you want to do when you graduate? And I said I wanted to do something that combined marketing and, business and had a facet in technology. And someone sitting behind me said, I work for a company that does that. And so a few hops later, I ended up at that company. I worked for a company called Epsilon, and they did customer relationship management. And so bringing together that technology, analyzing customer data, being able to identify customer segmentation, and then apply that insight to do marketing campaigns. And so that's
Sounds like
what
a
I
good
did.
foundation for Salesforce.
Oh yeah, exactly. And so that was my quote first real job. I really loved it. I worked at Epsilon for a number of years, and worked. Our client at that time was Apple, so I got to do a lot of work with Apple on
Wow,
marketing programs and segmentation. And then that brought me to Macromedia, which was subsequently bought by Adobe. But I worked on Macromedia for a
very
number
cool.
of years, and
Did you go through or were you in when they got bought out by Adobe? Were you
no,
working?
they
Oh,
got
okay.
they got bought later
I
on.
see.
But Macromedia, we had CRM tools, we had customer relationship management tools, and one of the companies that pitched
Hmm.
us was Epiphany. And so that's how I ended up at Epiphany. I
Very
really
cool.
really liked the product. I liked what it could do, for me as, someone who was working in, customer relationship management. And so I joined the company and was able to join.
Again, I know that
Yeah.
I know that you transitioned from Epiphany to Salesforce. But what does Epiphany do exactly again?
Yeah. So
Like, what was their
Epiphany,
product?
yeah, they don't exist anymore, but it was a customer relationship management tool. And the difference being is that it was all in the cloud. And so whereas
Okay.
prior tools were more on premise and very, heavy from a desktop perspective, Epiphany was all in the cloud. And so you could access it
Wow.
anywhere and be able to use web technologies. So that was pretty neat. And I loved the founder's vision, just what they were trying to do. And I really lucked out because they were only in the US when I joined, and then they opened a European
Hmm.
office in the UK in London. And so I was able to go over and be kind of, yeah, a bridge between the office in Silicon Valley and then the London group. So I ended up staying in London for a long period of time.
Wow. Okay. So this was before. So you were in London, and because I see here you also were in London at Monster Worldwide,
Yep.
and also at Razorfish and Kayak. So
Yep.
you were in London before Salesforce, and then you went back to San Francisco, worked at Salesforce, and then went back over to London. So what? Why did you have a lot of interest in London when you were younger, or why were you the bridge between London and Silicon Valley?
Yeah, so for me, it was in professional services, you work with everybody in the organization. So I worked with engineers, I worked with product managers, I worked with, all these different facets. And so I was able to then bring a lot of that knowledge over to the office in London and just worked on projects across Europe. And also over time, we expanded to EMEA, so I was able to do work in Australia and New Zealand, just all over the place. And
Wow.
it was amazing. But it got to the point where the product was too technical for the end users. And I was trying to understand why. I could train the customers, I
Hmm.
could, help them understand, how to use it, but it didn't really stick with them. And I was,
Hmm.
wrestling, why was
They
that?
didn't have that epiphany.
Exactly,
That
ironically.
was a bad joke. Yeah.
Good. It was very good, very pointed. Um, but what it
But
was is that the tool was too technical from a user experience perspective, that the terminology was written by engineers and the end users were marketers.
mhm.
They just didn't get it. And so that's what led me to go back to get another degree in human computer interaction. I wanted to understand, the mental
Wow.
models, what was causing our users who love the idea of the product not be able to comprehend it. Why were they getting stuck? And
Hmm.
a lot of it was because
Hmm.
the engineering terminology was bleeding into the interface and they just didn't get it. The product workflows were designed for
Hmm.
engineers, not for the customer. And so that I got a degree in human computer interaction from Berkeley. And that's where I learned a lot
Wow.
about user experience research and how do you make sure that what's happening on the interface is, reflective of the customer, whereas the back end is more the technical. You don't want the technical to bleed into the interface, and just how to do
Hmm.
all of that research to be able to ensure that the product really embraces and reflects what the customer is trying to do and reflects their mental models. So yeah,
Wow. So
I
you
don't
pretty
know.
much, in a nutshell, you pretty much like dumbed down very complicated softwares and programs for marketers. Like
Yeah,
that was kind of like, wow, that
yeah,
sounds very complicated.
but it was an amazing
Like,
experience. Yeah, and I'm not saying that I recommend everybody get multiple degrees, but
hmm.
for me to be able to really comprehend what was changing in the space, because it was the time that, user experiences were really getting developed on the web, and just being
Hmm.
able to better define how you could yeah, have someone adopt and use your product in a way that didn't require them to like just retrain their whole brain. It was really, yeah, it was really impactful and powerful. And so that's what
Wow.
led me into to Salesforce. Is I interned at Salesforce during while getting my degree in human computer interaction.
Very cool. And then so Salesforce, it looked like you know you gained a lot of experience. Then you became the vice president of product at Western Europe, or of Western Europe at Monster Worldwide. So like, how did you end up going back to London, and how did that opportunity come about?
Yeah, so I always wanted to return to London. Again, I don't drive, or I don't like to drive.
Hmm.
And I loved being in London. You could go for a city break in, Vienna or Prague or, Florence,
Wow.
wherever. And so that was just amazing. And I really appreciated interacting with so many different types of cultures and just being able to experience how people, in one country might be more forthright. In another country, you have to prod them to be able to come forward with that information, and just how different, legal considerations need to be factored in when you're building products. And so for me, it was just like all of these
Wow.
opportunities in such a close space, and I loved it. And so when I had the opportunity to go back, I did. And I applied for jobs and got a job at Monster because I had that background in business, had a
Mhm.
background in product, I had a background of, working with data from my degrees. And so it just brought everything together. And so I started off leading product for UK and Ireland, and so over time, just more regions. And so
Mhm.
my final title at Monster was, yeah, the VP of Western Europe.
Very cool. And then when you were, because when you said you came to London, you were able to kind of understand all these different cultures. Obviously, you can do, quick weekend trips to Vienna, and all very amazing cities across Europe. Uh, did you ever experience any sort of culture shock, or how were you able to adapt so well? Because I'm assuming that it was able to kind of bleed into your professional life, obviously, when you're working with other cultures and working with other countries.
And
But did you experience any type of, um, yeah, culture shock when you first came to London, and kind of adapting to these new cultures, or how were you able to adapt so well?
yeah, London, it sounds funny, but it's like, it wasn't as much of a culture shock. I think the part that was cool is like
Hmm.
I was the one with the accent, so that was kind of neat. I had
Hmm.
friends who were in London, so they helped me, navigate around. Also, being part of, Epiphany when I went over originally. I mean, I had a whole, gaggle of friends that I developed from work, so that was, really quick. And then with
Hmm.
Epiphany, when I was there, we would go work on projects, at different countries. So did spend a lot of time in different cultures. And so what I learned is just to listen, and just to be able to, get a sense, get a read of the client, of the customer, of the culture. And that has served me throughout my career. Is I will listen, and I will, listen in an engaged manner to be able to really try to understand, what people are saying, but also equally importantly, what they're not saying. What does the body language tell me? What do
Very
the
cool.
impressions tell me? What do the behaviors tell me? And to be able to then apply that to, the work that I do. And so it really helped me just to be able to acknowledge and, be able to think about how do I work most effectively with people, because they're all different. That has really served me well throughout my career.
And it sounds like you've worked obviously a lot in the Commonwealth countries, Western Europe, the UK. Um, and when you say that you've been there for like a period of time, like how long is that period of time? Like, is that a couple days, or is it a week, or is that a month?
Yeah, we would typically on projects, they would be a couple months. So you would go there,
Whoa, okay.
fly out on a Monday, come back on a Friday, that type of thing. And so a couple months.
Hmm.
I was also able to work on a banking project in Australia, so I spent a couple weeks in
Wow.
Australia. So it was quite a longer period of time because you did need to customize the
Wow.
Epiphany software to the customer. And then also I worked on the
Mhm.
training.
Wow. So what was your favorite place that you traveled to?
That's a very good question. I mean, it sounds kind of biased, I guess. I loved London. So I really like to come back to
Mhm.
London. I loved everything about
London
London.
seems like a really cool place.
Yeah, if it didn't
I
rain so
heard,
much, I would have stayed.
I think, is it right? I think, I'm pretty sure like Toronto, New York, and London are like the three most diverse cities, or like they have like the most, uh, diverse populations. So, and London's actually one of those. I've never been to London either, so I definitely want to check it out. I just
Yeah.
heard the food is not amazing though. How did you like the food?
It's interesting when I got there originally, it was quite I guess yeah, it was quite meat and potatoes and that type of thing. But now it's
Hmm.
just I think a lot of places have similar
They have
food.
everything.
Yeah, when I go back now, it's got amazing diversity of cuisine. I think things have definitely evolved a lot over the years.
They probably have like really trendy restaurants and all
Very.
that. But and I hear
Yeah.
London has a pretty awesome like going out culture. I think in Europe in general,
Yeah.
and also I think well I've never lived in Europe. I've been there a couple times. I've lived in Japan only for like a period of like 4 to 8 months at a time, and then like South America for 6 months.
Yeah.
Um, and what I've noticed compared to America, a lot of these places they're like more going out cultures. Like they like 4 or 5 times a week they go out. They go out to drinks. They go out for dinner like multiple times a day. Um, did you like to go to London because of that like culture too? And did that help you kind of experience and understand different cultures as well? Just because I feel like London's such a diverse city.
Yeah, it was kind of natural. I mean, because I
Hmm.
think, well, my husband's South African, and I met him in London, and what he always says is that because you don't drive to work, you can stay and hang out at the
Hmm.
pub and have a couple drinks with your mates before you head off to the train or take the tube home.
Hmm.
So I think it's just the way the city is set up, more about public transport that makes it easier for people to be able to
Hmm.
to stay after and socialize. And so that definitely was a perk. I like that a lot. You see that in other
Yeah.
countries too, and it helps you to
Hmm.
get to know people. It helps you to acclimate. But I think it's definitely because of the public transportation just being one of the main modes
Hmm.
that people take to get to work.
Makes a lot of sense. And I think that, I mean, yeah, the United States definitely could do a lot better on its public transit. But I certainly agree too. Like in Japan, like the public transit's amazing, and
Yeah.
yeah, drinking is definitely something that people do after work. And then also a little side note, I did study abroad in South Africa at University of Cape Town,
Oh,
so I have lived in South Africa.
okay.
It's really cool. Is your husband from Cape Town, or is he from
He went to
what
school.
part of the country?
Yeah, he went to school all over the place, and so he grew up and went to school in Cape Town, and then also went to university in Durban and Johannesburg.
Very cool. Kind of, he hit all of like the biggest cities. And fun fact, and I'm sure you already know this, Durban has like it has such good, amazing like, Indian food. It has the biggest Indian population outside of India, which is like
Yeah,
something that I feel like a lot of people don't know.
yeah,
But yeah, to kind of get back onto product. Um, so when you were in London working at Monster, um, you s- you obviously helped grow the staff. You did a lot of different things. Um, what made you join Razorfish? Because it seems like Monster is like a really good
yeah,
um, opportunity. And actually, this is a question that Brian had. So I can kind of piggyback off this. Like, what he kind of was just like, what made you decide to jump from really cool opportunity to really cool opportunity? Because it seems like it'd be hard to leave like companies like Salesforce or Monster,
yeah,
like Kayak. Those are all like
yeah.
name brand opportunities that a lot of
Yeah.
people probably build their careers off of.
So for For me, it was because I wanted to explore new technologies. And Monster was developing, but I just wanted to be immersed in everything new.
Hmm.
And so I decided to join an agency because I knew I would be working on multiple clients, multiple projects, and the focus was on, helping them adopt the next thing. And so I was working in emerging media, which at that time meant mobile and social and gaming and digital signage and digital tables. But it just allowed me to really immerse in what was happening next. And that was exactly what I wanted to do. I loved it. I worked on really amazing brands and was then able to apply that knowledge to my next product role, which was at a company called Cheapflights, which was subsequently bought by Kayak.
Hmm.
And so I helped the product team for a year just embrace, mobile and social and just get more involved in what was happening just as people were transitioning from, desktop devices to mobile
Hmm.
devices. And so I worked with the product team just to build up their expertise there. And then I was there for a short period of time because my next opportunity at Pearson came along, and that was to be
Hmm.
able to establish the Future Technologies Group. And that brought together,
Wow.
all my product management experience from, Monster, as well as from Salesforce and my work at Epiphany, and to be able to help Pearson, which was a publisher, be able to transition to digital
Hmm.
and embrace, again, all the
Wow.
mobile and social and all the digital facets that I had from Razorfish and my whole product background, to be able to create a team that could then work across the organization to help the organization change. And so that's what I did at
I see.
Pearson. But it aligned well with my
Very.
Monster too, because it was about education and
Hmm.
learning and helping people, embrace careers as opposed to just having a job that didn't reflect you or help you grow. So it brought all the pieces
Hmm.
together.
Well, and kind of to go off of your experience at Pearson, and of course, it seems like your career serendipitously just like evolved, amazingly. But Peter had a question, and he wants to understand. Uh, I was developing product for ed tech folks like readers, teachers, adult learners. How is developing products for these type of users different than other type of customers?
Yeah. So my original jobs at Pearson were for the central organization. So it was helping the business transition. So in the beginning
Hmm.
couple of years, my customer, my client was the business. And so I was helping
Hmm.
business units develop prototypes using new technologies. I was launching developer relations so we could, have others use our content to be able to build applications. I was building partnerships with
Hmm.
incubators and accelerators to get us more involved in the startup space and just help create a better ecosystem. So a lot of my work in the beginning was more, centrally organized to be able to spread out to the business.
Hmm.
When I moved back to the U.S., that's when I got more into the traditional product management side on the higher education
Hmm.
part of Pearson. And it's the thing I would say is extremely regulated. Education is very,
Hmm.
very regulated, for logical reasons. And that was probably the biggest difference for me. When I'd been in product in other roles, there wasn't as much consideration about the legal constraints that define what you can and cannot do. And so I had to learn about that a lot from a higher education perspective. But that also served me
Wow.
well when I went from Pearson over to Simple Practice, which was a mental health and wellness company.
Hmm.
Again, very regulated industry, but my knowledge from Pearson and how you navigate those legal requirements was helpful when I was at Simple Practice. But now that I'm back in education, it's been a good foundation for understanding the even more nuanced space that is K-12.
Yeah, I think. Well, and you were kind of just experiencing, you know, transitioning Pearson from publishing and paper to, you know, online technology. And I think right now we see in K-12 education, it's rapidly changing and evolving.
Yeah.
And this is just kind of a question that I'm not sure if you know the answer to, but I think that a lot of teachers are seeing their students using like AI when they're studying. What are your thoughts on AI, and how do you think the education system is going to evolve in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I think we're seeing it with both teachers and with students that they're using AI. And to me, it's really exciting. From an educator, from a teacher perspective, it helps them, you know, have some busy work taken over by technology. And so there's facets that they can, you know, automate or have automated through technology, which is really helpful. For the students, you know, similar to, you know, Wikipedia, and even when people started talking about search, you know, it gives them more insight, more knowledge. And I also think the combination between the two creates more engaging conversations, because the teachers can ask the students why. They can get more into discussions beyond just an answer. And so whereas, you know, without AI, for example, you would, you know, still be able to search and get some information and what comes back. And so now when we talk about like a flipped classroom, you do that more as well in the K-12 realm too, to have that critical thinking and that dialogue with the students about why do you think this is the answer? Or even do you know if the answer is right? Because the AI can bring back hallucinations, which may not be the right way to think about things. And so it creates more engagement and it creates more dialogue, which again helps students think more creatively, and helps them just think more broadly than just the answer. And so I think it's going to open up a lot of opportunities for students really to grow and to go beyond just memorizing an answer, for example.
And do you think it's going to be more, because it sounds like kind of you can use that AI tool as, obviously you can prompt it and you can ask it different questions and treat it more, kind of as a peer that can use the whole entire internet on its shoulders to answer and give a fantastic question. But do you think, because I am half Japanese, I've seen how they have their education system in Japan, which is a lot more intense than it is in the United States. They also go to school for like 220 days a year, which like they have cram schools and all that stuff. So it's like Japan, South Korea, Singapore. And then you go to the other side of the spectrum where it's still top education, but it's like Scandinavia, where it's more Socratic-based discussion, learning, which it sounds like that's more where the United States is gearing towards with AI, utilizing it as that kind of medium. What are your thoughts just on like the K-12 education system, since you've been to so many different places? What do you think the solution is? Because the United States ranks fairly low on K-12 education for math, for reading, for science, compared to other different, like, you know, other countries. And I feel like, your thoughts.
Yeah, I think it's a very meaty topic, and it's one that I think will evolve. That we're seeing people question whether they need to go to university, and you know, how much experience can you gain just by doing. And so, as I think, you know, students as well as teachers look at the way technology can help surface opportunity for richer engagement in the classroom, I hope that it will help students learn and explore more in a way that's right for them. Not everybody learns in the same way, at the same time, in the same method. And so by having technology be more readily available, there's the opportunities for the teacher to have more of a truly, you know, interactive and personal experience with the students in a way that helps the students learn in the method that's best for them. And so I think I'm hoping that it will make education more relevant and more enjoyable for students, but also better prepare them for, when they graduate, whatever time they decide to graduate, make them better prepared for the interactions and the engagement and the types of situations that they'll face upon graduation.
And having a background in product, what do you think the next gen products are going to be in the K-12 education system? Because when I was, I think it was when I was in, I remember maybe high school, like the smart board was the cool thing where they're using the smart board for all this stuff instead of I think it was just like these projectors where I don't even know what the machine's called, where you put like
Yeah.
no, I'm talking about like the blank.
Yeah, it's like
But what do you think the next gen products?
Yeah,
Do what?
I don't know about. Well, I'll take it back. I think more in regards to like form factors. We still see a lot of students using, like Chromebooks. I mean, the quote laptops are still quite prevalent. You've got, students who will then progress and do, everything amazing on their phones. I mean, I think the thing that we all wonder about is that immersion. So is there, going to be this evolution where we're more immersed in some type of, metaverse? And so I think that'll be something, it'll be fascinating to see how it evolves. And so whereas, you read about, some type of historic event, can you now immerse yourself in it? And so I think that's one of the things that we'll wonder about and see how it evolves, just with, the technology being richer and more accessible than it ever has been.
That would be so fun to be able to just put a VR headset and then experience, a historical point in time or a historical moment in time. Yeah, just kind of I had a good question, and it just escaped my head. Just
I think for me,
it
I can
was
say I really like
yeah.
product because it allows me to explore so many different things.
hmm
And that's probably
hmm
the connection between all parts of my background. Is I grew up in
hmm
Silicon Valley, with technology being all around me. And again,
hmm
I wasn't a programmer. I was more on on the side with the business. And so I liked
hmm
that product enabled me to, explore the tech, explore the business, and bring that together with, the user facets, with that research element. And so for folks that are wondering, I need to find that one path, product is a path, but it isn't just one type. There are so many different types of product managers and so many different types of
hmm
approaches to product management. And that's one of the reasons I love it, because you can make it your own. And I think that opens up a lot of creativity and opportunity for people that are interested in product management.
Fantastic. And actually, I did think of the question that I was going to ask you.
Oh,
And it's just, and I mean, it probably could be that similar thing that you just said, but what would you tell your 22 years old self or 23-year-old self fresh out of college? Um, what type of advice would you tell?
to not take life so seriously. I think, yeah, like throughout my career, I've always worked really, really hard. And I'm glad that I did. And I think sometimes you just need to take a step back and just acknowledge, like, you're in Australia, you're in London, and just acknowledge the opportunities that, are available because of that, place or situation you're in, and enjoy it. So I know a lot of folks are like, I gotta get to the next level, I've gotta do the next thing. But
hmm
sometimes if you just stop and acknowledge where you are and the amazing things around you, that can be even more powerful than just trying to get to the next level.
I love that. And I think those are fantastic ending thoughts, Diana. I really
Yeah,
appreciate it for your time today.
thank you.
And I'm super excited for this episode release.